when you cut rates, you're targeting only the very front end of the curve. Okay, so you've got no idea what the back end's going to do.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate and actual performance may differ. As always, please remember investing involves risk.
And we are back with another edition of the Daily Dots. It's Casual Tuesday, man. I'm technically on vacation right now. I may not look it because I'm here.
Do not.
Hence the golf hat. So no, I don't typically come to work dressed like this, but well, I am on vacation right now, and my wife is probably getting more irritated with me by the hour because I haven't officially departed yet. But
that's fair from her perspective.
Yeah, well, yeah. I get it. It's just it's hard to disconnect sometimes, you know.
I'm the expert at not disconnecting.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping when I go to England here in a couple of months that I'm just gonna turn my phone off, throw it in the river Thames, as they say.
Yeah, you're not gonna do that. Because then you'd have to go an extended period of time without getting quotes, and I know that would.
Maybe that's when I'll switch to the Pixel.
Yeah. So why don't you run us through the indexes right now?
Yep.
Give us a rundown and see where we're at.
We got like 2 minutes left, but S&P down 0.31, Q's down 0.2, small craps down 0.6, equal weight's pretty flat. My Mag 7 down 0.7, all world ex-US also flat, and dollar up another 0.23% after yesterday's significant move higher. Although despite the dollar being up, yields are very much not up, with the 2-year down about 6 basis points, the 10-year down 9, and the 30 years down 10, which I'm not going to pretend to understand what's going on there, especially with this backdrop. Oil is up almost 4% after a very strong day yesterday. You're up like, 7-8% in the last 2 days.
Wow.
And yields are diving. Again, I don't understand that, but gold up 0.37, kind of good considering all that. Good day for nat gas, kind of bouncing back on weather models, bouncing back.
What could that be in yields? I mean, yields have been sort of defying. You and I have been talking about it for a while now, but they've been sort of defying my. I can't make any heads or tails of yields for quite some time now.
So when we zoom out, they've basically just gone sideways.
Yeah.
Which I think you can argue that makes sense. I'm fine with that. I'm even somewhat fine with the level, but today being down 10 basis points on the long end, I don't understand at all.
Do you think that? Do you think that's a byproduct of like the dearth of issuance at the shorter end?
So we do get the QRA announcement stuff tomorrow morning. The only thing I can think of is that maybe somebody expects that to be like the nuclear option of nothing but short end. Like, people don't expect a big change between, the shorter duration stuff and the longer compared to like the last few quarters or whatever.
And I screwed up. I meant dearth of the long end. No long end issuance.
Yeah, I know what you meant. So the only thing I can think of is that either someone thinks or someone knows that they're going to take that thing, just go this nuclear option of like radically reducing the maturity of the debt or something. Like, that's the only thing I can think of for this move today, unless there's some giant rebalancing flows that I wouldn't think would be at the end of July, but I don't know. That's where I'm at, is I'm grasping for straws. Unless there's something out there that I didn't see today, I don't get it. Like, data was kind of mixed today. I mean, you have this 10 days from now ultimatum on Putin to start, actually ending this war. And if he doesn't, we're going to make commodities way more expensive for ourselves. Like, that's kind of a weird punishment, but that would be very bad for yields, in my opinion, unless you think that's going to happen and it's going to create very quick, deep recession or something, but that doesn't make sense to me either. So yeah, I'm lost on this one. Now the 10-year only came down to like a big support level it's been at, in recent weeks, and it's not piercing through that significantly yet. But if it does that, then I'm very confused.
Yeah, it's a it's been a complicated picture for a really long time, but man, I feel like it just keeps getting more. There's so many things coming and going at the same time, and I feel like so few people are paying attention to the vast majority of them. Like,
Right.
and I'm not saying that we're the only ones that are not, but just if you listen to every time I listen to a commentary, I'm like, that's all you like. Everybody's like, oh, it comes out of this, and you're like, it's so much more complicated than that right now. I mean, it's always complicated, right? But this macro backdrop in particular, I don't know that I've seen a more complicated board than this.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with that at the moment. Like, and the point I've made in my writing over the weekend was like, because we're getting hot takes from both sides on trade stuff lately.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main points I was trying to hammer home was like, hey, none of us know, because yeah, you can point to tariff rates in the 30s or whatever and say, ooh, bad, or not that big a deal from tariff rates in the last time around in 2017 or whatever. But like the last times we did tariffs anywhere near these levels, the economy was drastically different.
Yeah.
Like globalization wasn't like this. Like, so the reality is none of us know how it actually plays out, which to me tells me like, all right, we'll just figure out what the market's confident in, and then figure out the odds of the market's confidence being right. And that's the only way you can play it. You can't play off what it's going to do. You got to play the player, play what the market thinks.
Yeah.
Same with, monetary and fiscal policy. And that's like a weird thing to me too, is like, if you look at the 1-year inflation swap, it says inflation will be 3.4% in a year, which is, basically a full percentage point higher than now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the Fed funds futures, it says like, we're going to do 2-3 rate cuts in the next year. And you're like, so inflation is going to rip back to 3.4 and we're going to cut. Like, so you could make the argument the market literally expects to cut into rapidly accelerating inflation. But if that's true, like, it's hard to me to think that, the 10-year should be going down if we're going to cut into inflation reaccelerating. Like, none of this stuff makes sense.
The whole thing doesn't make sense to me. For instance, one of the things I'm looking at, I mean, obviously there's the pressure on commercial real estate, but honestly, I really don't know how much that you can put on. Look, rates are not helping commercial real estate, unquestionably, right? But I think the bigger thing impacting commercial real estate is just the economic backdrop. You just have way too much office space for the modern economy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to.
No doubt. And we're still building a good bit, actually,
Yeah, well, and I was just looking at a building the other day, thinking about buying a new building for us. And
yes, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you should see what you can get, meaning
I have.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at one yesterday. Way newer. Beautiful add-ons and things like that. It's been modernized. They put a lot of money into it. It also has its own 4-story parking garage, which is also cash flowing, because you got I think they have about 25 different parking spots leased out in there. And you can own it all for about it's virtually the same to pay the mortgage on it when it's all said and done with taxes and everything. It's like $2,000 more than what we're paying on our lease right now to own it. Right. And then get to depreciate it so when you start looking out and you're at the same carry cost, if not slightly less than the lease.
Right.
But you get to own and the beautiful thing about commercial real estate is you can get those non-recourse loans too. So
right.
if something goes sideways on the building,
the risk reward ratio of the investment is very good.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to lose.
Yeah.
And they're giving that away. So anyway, my point in saying this was, I'll be honest with you. I'm having a hard time looking at the economy and understanding where this whole rate hysteria is coming from, because I don't see. They're like, well, the housing market, and I go, okay, great. So you're going to cut rates in the housing market, and you think that's going to help things? You're going to push prices right back up.
Right. And if anything, this is exactly what we need from like housing. And to that point, like maybe this is just a giant reaction to the fact that house prices are going negative now. If you look at the last 3 months and you analyze them, like we're pretty negative.
They need to.
But right, we went up 40% in like 2 years. Like maybe it would be a big deal to have a small drawdown.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's, I mean, and culturally, good luck getting this concept through to people. But honestly, I would rather have people paying 1.5 more on the interest on their mortgage and getting the house at a 15 to 20% discount than present.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Long term, that's going to make you better off. Right.
And on this one, I agree with Xi Jinping. Houses are for living in, not for speculating. Right.
Yeah, I agree. And that's if you want to look at a broader problem we've got in this economy and this culture, generally speaking, I don't think that this culture agrees that anything isn't worth speculating on.
Well, that's clear because my Guardians closer just got smoked for betting on baseball. So
yeah, boy, that talk about a good risk reward bet there.
Taking food out of his own mouth to make a few bucks on DraftKings or whatever.
He's living in the fully guaranteed, right? He's working in the fully guaranteed professional sport, virtually the only one.
Not a good risk reward trade.
No. And we're going to risk it all to make a quick 10 to 15 grand on DraftKings. Like just, wow. How old is this guy?
Oh, he's in his 20s.
Yeah.
And he's been pitching for us for like 3 years, a little over 3 years. He's already our saves leader for the franchise history.
Wow.
Because the dude is amazing.
He's pretty good.
But
well, that's
apparently he's not that sharp.
Yeah, doesn't have a future in finance, that's for sure.
You don't want him to structure a deal for you.
No. I certainly don't want him managing risk. What else we looking at here? You and I were talking earlier today. The things that are immediately concerning to me is the Chinese trade deal. Are we going to extend those tariffs? Are we going to extend the tariff extensions or not?
Right. So to catch everyone up, the news there today is well, China said maybe extended it, and then our side was like, well, Trump still has to sign off on it, so maybe. But we agreed in principle, barring his signing off on it, to push, kick the can down the road another 3 months, essentially, which I'm sure we'll do. So you're sticking at whatever it is, 35% tariffs or whatever on China. I think we stay pretty status quo. Like this is what I've been saying. I think we stay pretty status quo. It's hard for me to imagine things getting significantly better or significantly worse with China at this point. They can't get worse because they'll just play the magnet card and we'll back down. They can't get much better because then they would have lower tariffs than some people we're kind of friends with, and that's just awkward. Like, so to me, that's gonna be a holding pattern probably for the next 3.5 years.
Yeah,
or close to it.
Yeah, it's like I said, man. I just keep going back to what a complicated board it is, and one of the ways I say that too is there a lot of different guys that you and I both follow and know and are buddies with that manage money. I don't know if I've seen such a wide spread of opinions too, in terms of, there's really not a uniform place to be right now in terms of what your outlook is going forward over the next year, what you currently think is going on. I can't think of somebody off the top of my head that I'm like, yeah, we're pretty much in lockstep. And usually I can, usually there's somebody where you're like, oh yeah, that guy sees it a lot like I do. And there's guys that you've got things in common with. But
this is a good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just I don't know if I've ever seen all these outlooks so disparate. I mean, they're just all over the place.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you too. On the longer run, I am just as enthusiastic about international markets versus US as I've been at any time. In the near term, though, with the dollar pressing 99, DXY pressing 99 again, it kind of feels to me like this is the start of that correction that we were looking for, that dollar rally, that gold correction.
Emerging markets have had a tough week.
Yeah.
Well, given that China's held up pretty well. Um, Europe so far held up pretty well. Although now that you're kind of getting the euro coming down, like for a U.S. based investor, like all of a sudden those ETFs don't look as juicy. But I'm with you. Like long term, that's like for most of the year we had the good fortune of marrying short term views and long term views and just like letting them be together.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it feels like, all right, you have to separate those two and make sure you don't mess up, with some of the short term pain, even though you like some stuff long term. That's part of the confusion, I think. But like policy has been wildly difficult, obviously, to trade around. And now, in a weird way, now it's like resolving itself so much that it just introduces new issues that you didn't have to think about because all you were thinking about was trade. And now we have to like look at the trade stuff and go, okay, like now we basically know where we're at, but is this stuff inflationary or not? Is it deflationary? Is it in the middle? Like, and again, that nobody knows.
No.
Like, and I have a firm opinion, but I don't know.
Well, and then you get on the tariff subject, and people are like, "Oh, they're inflationary." I'm like, "Well, yes and no, right?" Because and it makes the price go up, and I'm like, "Yeah, but inflation is unique in the sense that inflation is a rate of change, like that's the metric, right?" So it is tariffs going on are going to push costs up, right? And that is inflationary
for goods,
for goods, but it's not inflationary in the sense that you don't have this reflexive feedback loop that is creating higher prices.
And I just wrote about this weekend, and I'm truly like I don't know, but it's worth thinking about. Obviously, we have the expectations channel. If inflation expectations come unglued, if we start reaccelerating, even if you're right that it's just a one-off readjustment of the price level. But if people expectations get nasty enough to the upside, then it can become a self-reinforcing feedback loop. I mean, we've seen that definitely in history. And the other thing that I don't think is getting enough attention with tariffs, and it's definitely a smaller deal at 15% than say 30, 40 or whatever, right? But maybe still a thing. If you think about the whole production chain, so much of this stuff that we're tariffing is like intermediate goods and raw materials. So if you're a producer in the US and you take raw materials and these intermediate goods, maybe some industrial machinery that you imported, and you combine those things to make your product's gonna be a lot more expensive. It just has to be, right? Because all your inputs, as those inputs come in and those raw materials come in, that's not an overnight thing. So that may last a year, even 2 years. Maybe you don't buy any industrial machinery until next year, and then you have to raise your prices.
Yeah.
So like there are some ways where like this stuff can last longer than it feels like it should. Like obviously, you just car from Japan, it's now 15% more expensive. The end, right? That's like an easy way to model that. But when I think about all the production we do with steel and aluminum and copper and all these intermediate goods, I'm like, man, that can stay a little more pervasive than we're expecting. And let's say, I went earlier, 1 year inflation 3.4, we're going to cut anyway. Market view, which kind of tells you the market thinks the Fed's going to go, it's tariffs, they'll go away in a year. But if I'm right that some of that lingers into that second year, and let's say the money supply is kind of getting after it the way it has the last 3 months, like there's plenty of fuel for 4% inflation there. So let's say you're a year and a half from now and you're at 4% inflation, and everyone's like, I thought I was going back to 2 because then I was told the tariffs are just one-off thing. Then the market has like a lot to grapple with. And I'm not saying that's an 80% chance, but that feels possible.
Well, the other one, and I saw a couple of these run around social media and a couple just in the general news, but guys coming out making statements, like basically calling everybody idiots. Just oh, okay, we got to reterm out the debt, so we need rates lower. So of course you got to cut rates. And I'm sitting there going, guys, when you cut rates, you're targeting only the very front end of the curve. Okay, so you've got no idea what the back end's going to do. And in this scenario, now the one part that throws you off is the 10-year yield being down today. it's just one day again, but I don't.
But it's a big move though.
Yeah, and you're looking at it. It's just a head scratcher. You're going, what?
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
and to go back to that, like, let's, instead of terming the debt out, let's all jam it into the front end and do it that way, and then we can refi the debt really low, yields. It just sounds like a free lunch, and I feel like a lot of people are treating it like that. But what you do is create this giant rollover risk. If you bring it all into the short term, well, you better hope now you don't have inflation.
Doesn't,
right.
Yeah.
Now, never mind the fact that creates its own inflation, but we'll leave that aside. Let's say an asteroid hits the Middle East and you have an oil problem and oil's $200 a barrel. Well, now you're refining into 7%, 2-year yields or whatever. Like the risk of shortening that up is very real. And it's like almost like we forgot why we have long-term, debt securities. Like if this was a free lunch, we never would have sold a 30-year bond ever, right?
Yeah.
But we do for a reason.
Yeah.
So that one I'm struggling with, especially since the Bessents and Mirans of the world like preached so heavily against it, and for good reasons. And now they're like, well, let's go yelling, but on steroids.
Yeah, and the whole setup is really concerning to me, because for instance, the rates are too high. Look what we're doing to our debt. Da, da, da. Again, man, when I'm looking at a 10-year that's carrying a yield between 4 and 450 basis points, that's historically low. It's historically low. And if your argument is, well, we got to do this for, to save money. And once again, I look back and go, guys, we have a debt problem. We don't have a rate problem, relatively speaking, right? Like if your whole thing is, rates are just out of control, guys, go pull up a chart and look at 4.5% yield.
It's more about the debt they're applied to.
100%, man. And once again, we're talking about the accoutrement, right? We're talking about the window dressing. We're not talking about the house. And, obviously, would we want to be able to term out that debt at lower? Yes, of course. But 4.5% is pretty good. And my fear is, like you said, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're looking back going, boy, don't you wish you could sell 30-year bonds at 4.5% today?
And that very well may be the case that,
Well, I mean, if the deficit keeps going up like it is.
And it's going to.
Yeah. You don't think they're going to get fiscal discipline all of a sudden?
I never have. So.
Oh, weird.
That's the one thing I didn't fall for this year. I think I may have fell for everything else, but I didn't fall for that one.
I mean, it's kind of turned into a safe bet, right?
If it's just math.
If you hear a politician talking about fiscal discipline, you have yourself a good laugh.
It's theater.
Yeah. Resume. Go back to what you're doing.
There's like three people in Congress that care and would actually, do something about it. Even if I think there's maybe one or two that even with the consequences that came with it, they'd be like, yeah, that's fine. Like, it's like a righteousness thing. Like we're doing it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more than the 3 people in Congress, so it doesn't matter. I think just yesterday, Brad Gertzner, who's, a great tech investor, does the podcast with Bill Gurley. Like I've struggled with him all year with like, and there's a lot of these tech bros from Silicon Valley that came into politics for the first time really in the last year or two. And a lot of these guys are like, they're in the Elon school of like, let's balance the budget. Like this is crazy.
Yeah.
And then you're like, cool, but where are you getting it from? And now he's like, forget Elon doing a third party. Let's put all that focus into a balanced budget amendment. I'm like, dude, like you think 2/3 of Congress are going to vote to slash the Pentagon and like Social Security and Medicare? Like, come on, like that. No one's doing that.
Well, not only
a non-starter.
No, well, not only that, but what do you over what period of time?
Plus, are you talking
about doing that like as in next year?
And if you are, like we've talked about many times, like you're just in a depression. Like, sorry,
yeah, full tilt.
Right.
Well, I mean, look, you've been on the teat now for 15 years. Like, if you think you just pull that cord and balance the budget, look, we're back in business.
Right.
I mean,
you think about all the feedback loops, like asset prices collapse, and then that crushes spending, and then that takes jobs, and then that takes all. It's just look at. I mean, again, I think scale is becoming an issue because I think a lot of people are losing sight of the scale of this whole conversation, right? Which is, and this is one angle to understand it. And I think I said this for the first time last week, but I think it bears repeating.
you need to stop and consider the fact that the increase in our deficit this year alone is the equivalent to about 27% of last year's S&P 500 profits. Like, think about that, right? So the total profit output of the largest and most dynamic economy in history, our deficit, not our total government, right? Just the deficit has increased in 1 year, 25% of that amount. A market that makes up 70% of global GDP or global market capitalization. You have a scale problem, meaning the numbers have become too big. And that's the other thing people forget about is when you're running 7 or 8% deficits to GDP, by definition, your economy is a lot more sensitive to government pullbacks and spending.
Right. Exactly.
It's the way it works.
It's like people that get addicted to Vicodin, and next thing you know, they have to scale up to 80 Vicodin a day to keep that same feeling.
Yeah. And look, I don't think that this is like existential, the dollar's about to collapse. What I do think, though, is I think policymakers think that they've got a far bigger amount of wiggle room and a far bigger amount of lateral space and movement than they actually do. I mean, I think for all intents and purposes, the Fed still has tools they can throw at things, but not a lot, really.
Yeah, I mean, we're clearly at the precipice of true fiscal dominance. And to be fair, like, kind of the only way out is to. So we went from like, oh, we're gonna like get the deficit down to 3% and yada yada yada. We went from that and doging $2 trillion away, all the way to just kidding. We're gonna grow our way out, and they've taken heat for that pretty significant flip flop, right? But the reality is they reached the only conclusion you can reach, because the only thing you can do is grow your way out and to allow a pretty significant inflation to come reset things. Now that comes with a quality of life adjustment that's going to happen to the population the same way you would if you raise taxes a normal way. But it's kind of the way to do it. To me, you reach the point where there's only two questions. Are you going to grow your way out and burn it down with inflation, like really productively? Or are you going to just do it with just nonsense, like, just handouts of cash and like throwing money at politically favored nonsense? Or are you going to, like, try to go big, find really important big national priorities and like shore things up, like put a bunch of money behind winning like the real races that matter, in the world for technology and science and everything? Or are you just gonna just throw some money at the plebes and hope it all works out?
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ.
Well, that's the thing that irritates me, and you and I have talked about this many times, but I think that there is, I'm not saying that government has to completely shut off the coffers. I don't think they can, for a variety of different reasons. The scaling issue we're talking about, and just looking at the large numbers, it's just unfeasible. And I hate the fact it keeps getting thrown out there, because every single time we have a balanced budget debate, we've just completely wasted our time, and we're further away from a solution because it's not feasible. And it really is incredible to me. And I don't mean this as a slight to these guys at all. I'm glad that they're coming along. I'm glad that so many more people are in tune to what's going on in the federal budget. I think that, knowledge on that level is only beneficial to overall society and culture at large. Having said that, it is really shocking how brilliant people can have such a depth of knowledge that is so narrow, right? Where you're like, how is it that you've got such a depth of knowledge and understanding, and you're so brilliant, and yet the very basics of economics and finance just pass you by? Like Chamath is a perfect example of that. That guy puts out at least one tweet a day where I look at it and I'm just like, oh, dude,
right.
That's such a bad take.
Right.
Like, just like
fundamentally bad. Not like on some nuanced level, like just fundamentally bad.
So next year kind of reminds you of Good Will Hunting, right? Next year, you're going to read some Keynes, and we're going to mix some Hayek in here, and your opinion's going to change in this way, where you're like, just come on, talk to me in a year from now. Like, keep coming. and like I said, I'm glad. I don't mean it to denigrate anybody. The more people, but it does kind of catch you off guard, because I listen to some of these guys and I'm like, man, what I don't know is a lot. And then you hear some of these cats talking, you're just like,
you haven't done like the 101 stuff, man.
you're not even reading the Wall Street Journal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of shocking. And then listen to how strongly they believe in their takes, and you're like,
speaking of what we said, if any young people are out there listening, go read Keynes and Hayek, and not what people say about it. Go read it, and go read them.
Yeah,
and
go read it all, man. Go read the Communist Manifesto.
100%. And
right,
and then Ludwig von Mises for the hardcore Austrian stuff, and then go read the MMT stuff. Like, go get it all.
And then what you'll find, if you're like me, is that you find that the world is a much more complex place than you think it is. And what I mean by that is that what you realize is there is no philosophy or outlook that's going to bring you to the right answer every single time. That what you end up seeing is a lot of these philosophies should be looked at tools in a toolbox, as opposed to a myopic way of viewing the world, and that everything, right? I have found a hammer and now everything in the world is a nail. Because like you and I have talked about, I mean, it's so funny too if you hear the quote unquote economic story of America. Because depending on who you're talking to, and depending on what their time frame is, you're going to hear completely, right? You're going to have some people say that the building out of America was the thriving of the middle class underneath the unions and stuff that have popped up and really took impact, really took effect over the period of the 50s and 60s, right? You're going to hear other people talk about Teddy Roosevelt, turn of the century. You're going to hear other people talk about Reconstruction, post-Civil War. Right? You're going to hear other people talk about Bretton Woods, and you're going to hear other people talk about post-World War II and the Marshall Plan and all that kind of stuff. And then they're going to say, that's why we should do those things. And you go, no. Those are examples of why you should have done those things at those times.
Yep.
Right? And that every circumstance deserves, right? It's like every occasion you go to, you don't just have a black tux, you wear it to every single thing. Right? You got a suit, you got a Navy suit, you got a gray suit, you got different things for different occasions. But what I was going to say is I really wish we would change the way that we approach spending on a government level, and even stimulus to that matter. Meaning, I wish there was more investment going on and less bread and circuses, because I feel like that's where we're at. I feel like we're just throwing bread to the plebes, like you said, throwing some circuses on there and just hoping they keep their mouth shut. Like the talk of now, Howley's out there talking about $600 kickbacks off tariffs. For what?
Right.
For what?
So we're going to do a consumption tax on you and give you some back. Like, what are we doing?
For what?
Or like take that money and, restructure important things like education and healthcare.
Yeah. There's that. And those problems are so big that money would only be just a start at addressing those things.
Like, just think about the fact that we treat all degrees the same in the way that we subsidize them through government finance.
It's insanity.
Like, that doesn't what?
It's pure insanity.
Right.
And
you can get the same terms on the same loans.
Well, more importantly, what it points to, though, and I think that this is a problem that people need to realize, what it really shows is that it's not just the government making these bad decisions on behalf of you.
Yep.
The education system in and of itself is voting for what serves it best, not the people it serves. Right? Pure and simple. Right? Why? I mean, it's like go look at the amount of degrees that are offered at these universities compared to 15 years ago, and then compare that to the level of grant money available and all that other kind of stuff. And what you see is, again, it looks pretty naked on the face of it. What you see is an effort to justify ever increasing levels of tuition, right? And ever increasing levels of government money and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to keep coming up with new degrees because we want to make that net as big as we can. It's like we're out here trying to educate young people. No, you're trying to put them into servitude, right? It's tough on some of these days. We were looking around and you're listening to everybody talk and you're all talking past each other, right? There's no real solutions. I haven't heard a real government debt spending solution thrown around in this whole thing.
It is sad if you reflect on the fact that, like, I don't remember the last time someone came up with something. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's thoughtful. forget doable. Like, so like someone to come with a plan that is A, realistic, B, like, treats the actual moment as the reality that it is, and then takes like real serious steps to make it better. Like, just there's no one's doing it.
Yeah, and I think that you're also, like we've said too, you're pressing up against so many issues. One of them is just philosophical, meaning, do we view the economy as something that can be jiggered with and messed with in order to provide the level of funding that government says it requires? Or do we jigger government and adjust government to be able to live off of the amount of money that the economy is providing it? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a cart horse type scenario where I think way too much of this, and I don't say this philosophically. I really say it. People like, look, guys, I'm all about government should have services. We've talked before about the need for safety nets. We've talked before about, the needs of these things, but there also needs to be an element of adulting mixed into that, which is, you can do as much of that kind of stuff as you can afford. It's people's right for an education. You go, no, that's not true. I'm sorry. It's just not true. Nobody owes somebody. And the reason why I say that is, the only person that owes you an education is you.
Yep. Especially these days. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're going to go out there and try to sell me the story. If you don't have a degree, you can't get a good job. That's nonsense. We got examples of that all over the place.
Wi-Fi and AI, for less than $100 a month, you can learn anything.
Yep. Yeah. And you can get really proficient at it.
Yep.
And you can get excellent at it.
Yep.
And you don't need to go toast 250 grand. Now, look, as a guy that went to college, I hate saying that, because I think that college is kind of a rite of passage. I think it's a wonderful time of personal growth and fun, and kind of like your last bastion of childhood before you get thrown into the deep end of
extended
adulting.
Adolescence has its place in American culture for sure.
Yeah, but not when it's indebting an entire generation, right? Like, if it's turning everybody into serfs, that's probably a price too high.
Right. If you're getting a $200,000 loan to get your philosophy degree over 6 years, like, maybe not a good use of resources.
No. And like I said, I just,
nothing against philosophy degrees, by the way.
No. And look, I don't have all the answers either. I'm not saying that. I listen to all these people throwing around ideas. And to me, I don't even feel like we've gotten serious about it. We haven't even begun to have serious conversations about what we're up against fiscally, monetarily, debt wise. It's just a bunch of bloviation and hot air at this point.
No doubt.
All right. That about does it for me. Do we have any data that we didn't get to?
So we had conference board today. Consumer confidence up pretty significantly, doing pretty well. The labor differential in conference board, which kind of gives you a vibe for where you're going with unemployment, that continues to leak lower, suggesting unemployment should be moving higher. But I think the net immigration, obviously coming way down, is messing with that signal, because, yes, hiring slowed dramatically, but the labor market's shrinking because we're literally losing, labor people. So that keeps the labor market tighter than it would be. And that's very important moving forward, is even though the labor market, there's not a bunch of hiring, can wages actually start firming up here for no other reason than supply demand of labor is getting a little out of whack. And there are some early signals, especially for some bluer collar work, naturally, that it is firming up, and that people are getting back to, like, people having to give some, like, bonuses and stuff like that to acquire some workers along those lines. Obviously has very inflationary implications if wage data bottoms soon. The other data we had home prices, which were pretty bad. We had JOLTS, which was, there's less job openings than expected, so a little looser than expected there. So again, labor market, keeps slowing. Although I think jobs this week could actually maybe surprise to the upside a little bit, but probably get revised out. But hey, but yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I think I'm missing one thing, but I've largely started to ignore regional surveys for the most part. I took a very quick look at them because they just the signal of noise is just so rough that
they've always been noisy, man. And I don't know why. I think there's probably 100 reasons why they've gotten more noisy. It's like, for instance, and we've talked about it a ton, but consumer confidence Just tell me where the stock market and crypto's gone in the last
Right,
2
right.
weeks, and that's going to be your consumer confidence.
Right.
It's really that simple.
And speaking of that, I mean, obviously financial conditions are very loose, and you're starting to see macro data like pick up because of it, which shouldn't surprise anyone.
Saw another thing that I thought was kind of, and I haven't had a chance to dig into it, so I don't know the particulars, but just saw a headline that said, I think retail use of margin is at a new all-time high.
Yeah, that is actually, to me at least, somewhat surprising.
Yeah, I know.
Because now that you have access to 3x ETFs, I just assume like people aren't really going to use margin as much anymore. But here we all of a sudden margin is ripped.
Well, yeah, but you can margin those 3x ETFs.
Yeah, which that's terrifying. But yeah.
Well, I mean, dude, you're talking about a market where people are loading up on zero data expiry options. I mean, it's like Buffett said, it's more casino-like than any market we've ever seen.
Oh, it's not close there. That's for sure.
It's not. It's nuts.
I think you have to go back to the 20s to like really think of a time that where it's kind of obvious everyone thought they couldn't lose and acted accordingly.
Yeah, the one difference in this time though is, I think you're right. I think 20s are probably the only comp. The one difference this time though is that in a lot of cases, people know they're betting on worthless things.
Well, there goes your financial nihilism for sure.
Yeah.
To be fair though, the nihilists have done pretty well for themselves the last few
years. They've done. I mean, they've done better than the guys that are crunching balance sheets and looking at cash flow and things like that. And that won't last, right? It feels to me like it's already kind of started to unwind a little, not as much as we'd like it to.
At the end of the day, it's a liquidity store. If liquidity is really high, dumb stuff goes up, and dumb people that chase dumb stuff get to make a bunch of money. And then when the liquidity tide goes back out, if it ever does again, then you get the opposite. And because global fiscal is hot and global monetary is loose, like that's what sets the stage for inflation to go up enough to get everyone to tighten again. And that's when you lose the liquidity. People are going to forget, but liquidity cycles. We've been in the good part of a liquidity cycle for 2.5 years, but that 2 years, maybe 3, I can't remember now. We bottomed in October, I think, of 2022. Yeah. So yeah, you're pushing 3 years now. So next year, roughly, is when you should peak and you go back the other way. And that's when all the best, funnest things to bet on in the last year become the most problematic.
Yeah. In the meantime, in the meantime, we're sitting here left with a U.S. stock market that is at nosebleed levels.
Yeah.
Could certainly go higher.
Because we're not going to get our fiscal stuff in order, it's hard for liquidity to go down. So,
yeah, I mean, because that's the name of the game, right? I mean, you can either make the hard choices, make the hard decisions, take the pain, or you just make sure you're pumping in. You don't have to fix the leak. You just have to get a bigger pump. Right. Just make sure you're pumping in more than is going out the back end.
Keep that debt to liquidity ratio right, and you're fine, which just means more liquidity.
Yeah. Means certainly more troubles. It just gets, every once in a while I have these days where I just get frustrated where you just look around and you go, we're not even talking about the issues, and if people want to be, this is not a riff against the Trump administration or anything. But
this is very bipartisan.
Oh, it's 100% bipartisan. I mean, we could have been having this same conversation for the last 25 years. It's just, it's more, it's more pernicious now. It's more pronounced. It's more in your face. And it's more urgent, to a big extent. And I mean, the issuance, like you just start going down that road. You start looking at those numbers. I mean, Anyway, well, that does it for us. I should be back for the majority of the week. I will be doing this from a remote location, though. My wife and I, football season starts, and we like to get away for 3 or 4 nights right before, because once football starts, I don't have a life for 3 months.
Yep.
So anyway.
Same, and I don't even coach.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're just spectating. So anyway, but I should be involved in dots for the rest of the week, and we'll keep it rolling. So anyway, as always, guys, catch us on social media. You can get us on YouTube. Just search Know Your Risk Podcast. Go to knowyourriskpodcast.com. Not hard to find. We will be back again tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you then. You're listening to Know Your Risk Podcast. Download and subscribe at Know Your Risk Radio or knowyourriskpodcast.com.
Investment advice cannot be given without a client service agreement. Zach Abraham is an investment advisor representative of Trek Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor. Bulwark Capital Management is a marketing name only and does not carry a separate registration.